Welcome to the Wisdom of Jacob's Ladder. I'm your host, Jacob Cooper, author, Life After Breath, and the Wisdom of Jacob's Ladder. For those of you who are new to my YouTube community, we welcome you here. Please make sure to hit that subscribe button and bell notification icon to stay a part of our growing community and get up to date for weekly podcast guest interviews coming your way each week. Today's guest is my friend, Silvia Isachsen. She runs the YouTube channel, the spiritual channel. She's an incredible luminary, thought leader, and tremendously influential. So Silvia is going to be coming in to talk about near-death experiences, dreams, higher consciousness, abundance, law of attraction, all the gamut. So she's just a spiritual luminary and tremendous thought leader. And I know you will be getting a lot of our dialogue here on the Wisdom of Jacob's Ladder. Silvia Isachsen, my dear friend, thank you so much for coming on the Wisdom Jacob's Ladder. I know years ago I was on your podcast, Spiritual Podcast, and it was a wonderful conversation. And now, a couple years later, it's just an honor to have you on my channel so that my viewers could learn more about yourself, your podcast, your journey, because as a colleague and friend, it's inspiring, it's moving. And it's the perfect day to record such a conversation here on MLK Day, the man who had the famous speech, I Had a Dream. And I know you're someone who is all about dreams, and your life seems to be but a dream. As the song says, merrily, 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 life is but a dream. And I know you're someone very tuned in and just a real big luminary. But for my viewers who aren't aware of you and your podcast and your work, could you tell us a little bit of insight about the current work and what got you to become this incredible luminary that's impacting so many lives?
Thank you so much, Jacob. That's really nice. And thank you for having me on your show. And it's amazing that you just said that, merrily, 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 life is but a dream, because that's actually one of my very favorite songs. That's actually a motto that I live by.
Wow.
For me, yeah. So it is a great day because we are going to talk about dreams. And I have a spiritual channel where I discuss things like dreams, the consciousness and expansion of consciousness. That's really what we're into this year. That's my goal, is to help expand consciousness all the way around so people can have better experiences. And I guess my spiritual journey started a long time ago, like yours too. And it was a long road, a good road, and a road that taught me a lot of things. And I feel really honored about it. I guess my dreams have been pivotal teachers along with other people in my life. But in my dreams, basically what happens is I'm either having a dream of somebody who has passed away, who is communicating with me, or I have dreams about higher consciousness things.
I love it. And, earlier before our conversation, you made a great point. I mean, on my channel, I had, one guest, Mikhail Clerk, who talked about dreams, but you made a point that I don't see dreams spoken of enough. And it's something that we all have every night. But for you, what are dreams, how have they meant your life? And how do you feel people could benefit from understanding their dreams? What value do they have? Why are they there?
I think it's a connection between the subconscious mind and our free-flowing consciousness and our conscious mind. And the limit of barriers and thoughts, limiting thoughts, if you remove those, you can have a closer connection with your subconscious mind, which is connected to the collective consciousness. So I feel like I'm very fortunate that it happened spontaneously, but who knows, maybe at some point in time I really worked on it and now I'm reaping the benefits. But at nighttime, I just go to sleep without any effort. I don't ask a question or anything. I'm just guided. Occasionally I will ask for guidance, but usually I'm just having fantastic dreams that teach me about reality, who I am, where I stand, how I could be more helpful to people. And I suppose the primary questions that everybody asks about their existence are answered for me in these dreams.
I love it. Now, do you like take like a yellow legal pad and write down? You know, I know some people tend to do that. For you, you just wake up and remember it. I'm wondering, because I'm asked often by people, they're like, I have dreams, but I can't remember it. How do I remember it? And so I'm wondering, what's your secret sauce? You know,
some dreams where I'm really learning a lesson, I can't forget them. Like I remember dreams I had when I was 8 years old. So some dreams never change. I mean, they are life-altering lessons, and they're imprinted on my consciousness, not just my subconscious. So I won't forget them. I have written them all down. I did create a little book, and one day I might share it, but at this point, I'm not. But I mean, I had some amazing, amazing dreams. And I mean, you could ask me about a different category. Like I've had dreams about, again, talking to my deceased grandfather and then my father when he passed away.
wow.
I've had dreams of guides showing me the value of things. I had one dream that I could share with you right now. So I had a dream that I was in front of a cave and there were two angel type beings. And you know, it's more of a feeling than what you see. And one was the guard and the other one was asking me to come into the cave. And I'm like, okay, they seem like really nice beings. So I walked into the cave and I saw all manner of gold and gems. And I thought, wow, it was jam-packed wall to wall on the ground, all this gold and gems. And I thought, this is amazing. And then the angel said, this is all yours. And I thought, oh, I thought, you know, I was really vulnerable and authentic in that state when I'm in my sleep. And also just believing. But I told the angel, I said, well, I don't know. I don't know what I've done that all of this is mine. This seems like an awful lot of gold and gems to be mine. And she said, no, it's all yours. It's all yours. And then she said, you see that guard in the front, the guardian angel? And I said, yes. And she said, that guardian angel will be there always. And will always be here for you. And whenever you need this, it will be there. And so that was quite an amazing dream. And in that dream, what I've come to learn after years is that it didn't necessarily represent wealth. It represented abundance and deeper and richer experiences and spiritual gifts that was accessible to me whenever I wanted to. And then as the years passed by, I recognized that cave is actually, it will never go away, and they will never go away because they are a part of me. So that was one profound dream. And of course I had the dream in Sedona, which I think I talked to you about. That was the dream, apart from my grandfather and my father, which I'll mention those too, if you like. I had a dream in Sedona. So I'll give you a little backstory. I went to go hiking in...
Hello, right back there. Yeah. Yeah.
Then that looks very familiar. So I went to go hiking, and I did, and you know, I didn't feel as much vibrational change as I thought. Well, this is really beautiful. I mean, I was tremendously inspired, but I didn't have an experience that I thought I was going to have until I went to sleep. And when I went to sleep, Jesus appeared in front of me, and I had a long relationship with Jesus, in that I felt that he was my guide. Even though I wouldn't consider myself to be a religious person, I always felt very drawn, very close to, and very connected with Jesus. So he shows up, and he was about an arm's length away from me. And the first thing he did was he held his hand like this on him, and then this to my heart. And he said, the kingdom is within.
Wow.
And then I said, oh, wow, like that's, you know, and then he proceeded to communicate with me. And he said, you know, you think that your life is you, but I'm here to tell you that it's not. He said, you are Alpha and Omega, and this is one experience. And he held up a ruler, and it was kind of like an ancient ruler, and it had dots, lines on it. And he said, each one of those is an experience, but you are Alpha and Omega. And then he said, look, he said, first of all, he said, trust the process. I'm like, okay. And then he said, look in the mirror. So being awestruck by Jesus being in front of me, I'm looking everywhere for this mirror. And I said, Jesus, I don't want to disappoint you, but I can't see the mirror. And he said, well, what do you see? And I said, I see planets, stars, and the universe. And he said, exactly.
Wow.
That's who you are. And I said, I'm that big. And then he said, he lifted up, it's 11:11 here. He lifted up a piece of, it seemed like a cardboard, but it wasn't that thick, and it was white, and it had the word imagination. I thought, that's odd that he would, like, my thought in the dream was, that's odd. And I looked at it, and he said, anything that you can imagine is what is. And I'm like, wow. So I felt really good about that dream. And there's probably other parts to it that, you know, those are the ones that stick out to me because it was quite a dream. And I felt very connected to God. And I really focused on a few of those points, particularly that the kingdom was within. He was very adamant about telling me that. And so I thought, well, if the kingdom is within, I better get to know myself. So that happened in 2020, it's 2024. So that's 3.5 years ago. And that was a very pivotal, deep dream that I had. I'll never forget it. I mean, there's some aspects that maybe, I'll forget about a dream, but I understand the message. And the message is that there was more to this life than what met the eye, and that consciousness, who I was, Alpha and Omega. And I found it fascinating that he had used those words, Alpha and Omega. Those were such powerful. When he said it, my whole being was like, whoa, I'm eternal. Then I started to think, well, if I'm eternal, how does that shift who I am and how I be in this lifetime, in this, and again, I don't even want to call it a lifetime, in this experience. So that was that, and very profound. I started off with a real profound one, but I also had a dream about my grandfather. It was my first dream that I had. I was 8 years old, and he came to me, and I'll tell you what, he was so beautiful, and he showed up, and he didn't say anything, and I noticed his lips aren't moving. Keep in mind, I'm 8. I don't know anything about any spiritual concepts, and he's speaking to me telepathically, telling me how he's sorry that he wasn't here for my birth because he had died 5 years before I was born. He said he wished that he had met me and that he loved me very much, and that he was watching over me, and he told me that he really loved who I would become, like in this experience. And he told me to tell my mom, which I didn't know, that I had a brother who had passed on after me. And he said that he's fine and that he's with him. And I was like, wow. So of course I went and contacted my mom, and I said, is that true? And then she said, yes. So that was always close to me. And as if that wasn't enough, then I had another one of my dad. So when my father passed away, because I lived with him primarily, he was my primary caretaker, and we were very close, I cried a lot. I mourned my dad so much. And I was pretty young, in my 20s, when he passed away. And I thought, why? Why did he have to leave? I'm so upset. He was the only person who I had this, apart from Jesus, somebody on earth who I had the closest, it could have been anyone else, but it had to be the person who I felt at that time that I loved the most had to go. So I cried a lot, and I cried heavily about it, and it weighed on my heart. But he came to me, and he was sitting on my couch, and he was kind of turned sideways like this. And he had no expression, but he looked young. He looked like he was 35. And I thought, wow, Dad, you look so good. You look so handsome and good. Still no expression. And I'm like, that's odd. Then he turned to me and he said, Sylvia, you have to stop crying. And I said, Dad, I said, don't you know you died and it's terrible? And he goes, you have to stop crying because you are crying not for me. You're crying for your own loss. And I said, it upset me that he said that, because we had such a loving fun, and he was pretty serious in this dream. And then I thought to myself, I said, yeah, but you're gone and you're not here. He said, it's your time now. I had my time. This is your time. You need to be responsible and accountable for your life, and you need to grow up and you need to live your life. He said, I'm working and I'm very busy. And each time you cry, I have to come back down, and I'm drawn to this. He didn't say that, but that was what I understood. He said, I have to come back down and I have to help you. And he said, I have to work, important work. I'm like, how much work do you have to do in heaven, Dad? Like, not you in heaven? He said, let me just tell you that I'm doing things and I have lots of work to do. And I said, okay. And then he said, no, I love you. Live your life. I haven't left you, but I have to go. So, oh God. So I never mourned my dad after that, because I knew that was him. I knew he was there. I knew it wasn't a dream. It was a state of sleep that I was in, but he was in front of me, and he taught me the things that I needed to know. And I understand that people really mourn, and that's actually been a pivotal dream and lesson, because I understand when people mourn the depths of their mourning and their loss. But he helped me understand that usually it's because the loss that a person feels about in their own life. And and you can't blame people. I mean, we're human and we need people and we love people. And when they go, it's not as if I'm not compassionate, but I know the reality of it is that there is no death, that people just move into different dimensions and they have other work to do. And we have our own work to do. That's the primary lesson, is that if we are held back through grief and feeling like we lost and we can't move forward, we have to understand we have our own work to do.
It's amazing. I know you unloaded a lot of transformation from your dreams, your intuition, which included visitations, from Jesus and, your grandfather and your father. But it's amazing how pivotal of a role belief could play in one's grief. And I think, in many ways, grief is very much a human thing. But when you're able to really touch and understand where our loved ones are, it could allow someone to really accelerate. They find people that have this box of viewpoint of a knowing that their loved one isn't in that box underground, but they're all around them and they're doing okay. They tend to progress, with their grief, versus that, kind of sobering feeling or belief system that they're just dead underground. And you're bringing up a great point that in our world, we say rest in peace. And certainly there's peace, but from your dad's standpoint, there is no rest. There's continuity. They're busy as ever. They're not retired. And so I think for many of my viewers, that's a wonderful point that you've made. And I think it's congruent with a lot of evidential mediumship. When they connect to loved ones, they're always busy. If it's classes, they're continuing development. There's no retirement over there. It's not like you're going to Florida and just living in a retirement home when you die. It's very much an active continuity of what you were in your prime.
Yeah, he did do a follow-up dream, and it was a shorter dream, and he showed me the sun, and he showed me each individual ray, and he said, we're all connected. He said, this is what it's like, Silvia. So he showed me the sun, and there were all these rays, and I was one ray and he was another ray, and how we were connected at the core.
The ray of God, if you will. We call that, right? I had an aunt that had like the same kind of lesson where she described soul family as just different rays of God, or different expression of the divine, congruent with the segue that I wanted to bring up. But I had a near-death experience researcher, John Burke, on my channel, New York Times bestselling author, and he spoke about the allegory of the sun and of the light on the other side, where he spoke about how in this reality we have the color spectrums that are just really derived from the sun. But when you go to their side, there is no sun. It's an unlimited light. So the colors that people have and the visualizations that people have are not limited by the rays of the sun, which, to me, that's just fascinating, and that's so true with near-death experience research, how people will talk about colors and say there's nothing to describe it. And that's because we're basing that off of the colors that we have here. But my question for you is, what got you into near-death experience research? Because I know that's how we connected. And I know, early on in your podcast journey, that was a big crux of the focus. But
Yes.
What drew you into that? And what do you feel NDEs, STEs, dreams all maybe have in common, or do you see them as separate kind of derivatives from one another?
Well, I think that that's a great question. Thank you for asking that. What drew me to NDEs? And yes, my channel started with NDEs.
The early onset, yeah.
And it blew up with that, and we can talk about that because I love it. So NDEs were really the only experiences that I was witnessing on YouTube that were close to my experiences. So like in my dreams, I see all the colors. I experience all of those things. So at the risk of, I just felt like, am I crazy? And then when I heard the NDEers talk about this, I'm like, this is real. They have been there. This is not just me experiencing all of these things. And it gave me a connection. It made me so happy. I almost felt like I couldn't get enough. And I know a lot of people feel that way for many different reasons, but for me, it just kept validating the reality that I was experiencing through my subconscious and through my dreams that were coming through. And that made me feel a sense of belonging. It made me feel a sense of comfort. It made me feel like, hey, that I'm on the right track. It's all good. Like these
validation too, right?
Yes.
Universality, validation. Yeah.
Right. And I felt like when you have a dream of a deceased person, and when you think about having a near-death experience, I'm not going to say they're the same thing, because it is a lot to have a near-death experience, but the same actions are happening. You're meeting people like your grandfather or your father or loved ones. They come, they teach you things, you learn, and then you come back. But this happens to me over and over and over again. And each time I would hear a new NDE, I would experience that validation in a different way, because each NDE brings up a different point. One NDE might talk about the colors and traveling. Who's that guy? Melon Benedict, that guy about the consciousness. He's passed on now, but he had an NDE, and he talked about consciousness and the cosmos, just like in my dreams. That's a segment of dreams that I have about the cosmos and traveling through the cosmos. And I was like, oh my God, this is so good. This is because it was different. Like there's one thing about connecting with deceased loved ones, and there's another actually going into the cosmos and experiencing the nature of the universe and the nature of reality. And that's really where I'm heading this year in my personal evolution, is that consciousness, because beyond the attachment of the relationships that we have with people, which I know for some people is inconceivable that you can go beyond that, because I know people are important to me too. I don't want to lose anyone. However, those relationships and your existence here isn't limited simply by our day-to-day activities and our day-to-day relationships. But imagine all of the relationships between you, people, the universe, and everything in it. Like when Jesus told me that I am the universe, it's integrated into my soul and my spirit and my being. And I know that now. So I'm not afraid. I don't want to pass from this dimension into another. There's resistance for me too. But I think that we do it anyways. So in someone's personal evolution, I'm going to go a little deep here. You're not the same person, Jacob, as you were 20 years ago, are you?
I would hope not. In some ways, yeah, but in other ways, you can't step in the same river twice. Biologically, every couple of years we're proven to change. So I would hope I've grown up, but you'd have to ask my family. Maybe they'll give a better answer to that.
Well, there's core elements to your being, which are the same and will remain the same, alpha and omega, but we transform. So where is that old Jacob?
Transform, which just means trans to change, form, shape. It just change shape, much like those do in the afterlife. They change shape.
Yeah, and that's that we are transforming within this lifetime. And if you watch people as they move into their older years, I guess for lack of better words, their hair turns white, their skin starts to disintegrate, their organs start to disintegrate. Yeah, I know it's not what we want to talk about, but it's a reality. We can see it. And that's actually transformation in action right in front of our eyes. They're shifting from one dimension into another. It's like as if, back in the day on Star Trek where they would disassemble their atoms and reassemble, but it's just in slow motion. And so we customize ourselves to that transition because it's happening and we expect it. We know at one point they're going to disappear and be in a different dimension. But it's happening. It's almost like a courteous thing to age because you're allowing people to slowly separate from you and understand that you're not always going to be there for them. I don't know how you feel about that, but
it's like a launching pad, but it's just funny how vanity seems to have continuity on the other side, which is why I think a lot of loved ones like to show themselves in their peak physical prime, because that's how they don't want to remember by being like a vegetable, in a nursing home. They want to just show that, hey, I have brawn, I'm strong, I'm beautiful. And I think your grandfather showing himself around my age was his way of remembering, that yes, that is that part, but also we're eternal. We don't necessarily age, so to speak. There's a youthfulness that we have, and it's a physical temporary age that we have, but really the soul is eternal. It's ageless.
Well, yeah, and I think that we always remain in our state, but I'd like to dive in and clarify this. So I don't think that we age, we die, we lose. I think that that's an actual transmutation occurring in front of our eyes. So when we get to wherever we're going, we're back to our state because we've entered a new dimension. So then you're whole and you're fixed and you're healed and you are completely yourself again, whatever that essence is. Because I believe that what we look like is a representation of an assembly of atoms of our own energy. So you carry an energy with you. And as you leave this dimension into another one, you're making a shift. And then you reassemble as your new and better version of Jacob. And of course, you're going to look amazing because that's who you are. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. Definitely something to get the wood burning and the wheels turning. And my viewers will love this because I always encourage to not listen to one interview once, much like you don't want to read a book once. You want to keep on going over because each time. So I encourage my viewers to constantly go back to this because I know what you just said is profound, but it requires us to really get quiet. But I love what you really described, and it's really congruent with what Jesus said. How when people have near-death experiences, that doesn't mean that you have the monopolization of heaven or the other side. All it really means is it shows that we go on past this body, but the kingdom of heaven in me is in you could be happen and found when you're suffocated like myself, when your body shuts down, or it could be, you could find it in any place, like a dream or when you're relaxed. So it's always there. And so I think really sleep, it takes a lot of those barriers away because you're into those deeper brainwave states. You're into those delta states, where your brain really is just the filter of consciousness is more open. So we're getting out of our own way and we're connected to this door that is opening and the beautiful wind, from the higher ethers are presenting itself. And I think people who are more tuned in and their brains are a lot clearer when they go to bed at night, when they're eating better, when they're exercising more, when they just have a better filter, to me could connect, I think brain health is spiritual health, is physical health.
Yeah.
So I
And
know your spiritual and fitness journey has really put you on that understanding.
yes, and also belief systems. Like
Yeah.
we are tremendously limited by what we limit ourselves to. So if you can't conceive of it, how could you even believe it? And that's why everybody's sharing the NDEs. I think there's a great purpose to NDEs because it opens up people's understanding. And I mean, you really do have to let go of some limiting beliefs to believe in NDEs. And have you noticed that and there are some exceptions, but most NDEs happen to a younger group of people. And what I mean by that is they're not usually 80 or 90. Okay. So
Right.
anything between 0 and 80, for example,
Found
that is enough. Yeah.
a lot more middle aged, but I don't know if you've noticed this too. I've noticed a lot of near-death experiencers, their prior work has helped them in what they do. Like a lot of them are in media or marketing roles. Like I went to an IONS conference and everyone seemed to have some type of television background or something like that, which helped them because I think God, I guess, knew how to utilize someone who would help, not necessarily promote, but get that message out, and you think of our avenues of doing that. It's in the media, it's in marketing. I'm a little bit different. I had mine at 3 years old, so that's unique, but I've noticed a theme of in our lifetimes, the prior life that we have influences the work that we do, much like for yourself when you worked as an entrepreneur in the fitness industry, all that stuff. Now you're doing that, but in an evolved way. And so I think we have like a 2.0 that we could have with the earth life that we have and the spiritual foundation behind, some of our gifts that maybe weren't properly utilized to its fullest potential. But yeah, I know you had a beautiful observation that I'm sorry to cut you off on, that I want you to continue.
It's very good. Yeah. I think my interest in the fitness industry, and I took it to the top levels of teaching, writing books on anatomy and physiology for fitness specific, was really where that was born, was wanting to know who I was and living in this body. I wanted to know about ourselves. I wanted to know about our entire being from the inside out. It was deep, and I really learned a lot from it. And I feel like I even mastered understanding my body. And there was only one more place to go. And that was, two, your mind and your spirit. And you can define that through consciousness. And I'm doing the same thing now. I'm trying to understand. And I wouldn't be as lofty as to say master. Maybe secretly I want to master consciousness, but in fact, I feel like I don't have a choice. I feel like I'm on a conveyor belt that's just taking me forward, and life is presenting itself like that. So I wanted to go back to that when people have an abrupt NDE at a young enough middle age, whatever age they are, you have to quickly and rapidly come to a new dimension. And so there's no transitional period there. There's no growing old. There's no long, procedure before it. So it happens, and then suddenly you're in a new dimension. And I think that that's miraculous in many ways, that people are able to have that happen and then come back, tell us. And it's wonderful. And you have to believe them. I mean, they have gone, like, they were in the hospital. They got out of the hospital. They were recorded as either near dead or dead. And then they're telling you this. So I think that that's really beneficial for mankind to have a reference point, that there is something beyond, because I think that that's really a deep question most people have. And they just go through their lives normally, not talking about it too much. You don't hear a lot of people talking about what happens after you leave this existence here, unless they're interested in near-death experiences or spirituality. But most people aren't walking around thinking about what's going to happen after. And when you come with your story, and by the way, interviewing you was really wonderful. I have to say this. I think that you're a wonderful person, and I love your channel and what you're doing. Yeah. So I think it helps a lot of people. And but there's a point in time, just like when my dad said, you need to grow up and learn on your own. And that's really what's happening now, is that I believe it 100%. I know there are other dimensions. but what now? And that's where I'm at. What now? How can you live your life, minimize suffering, or at the very least, understand the suffering that you go through, transmute it and transform it into joy and generosity and abundance, and share with other people a higher level of being, so that you can help this dimension right here, right now.
Would you say that's a part of each soul's purpose, is to give over, something they experience, or to just kind of give over their own abundance? Or would you say it's just to hold on to it, experience it, not share it with anyone? Like, why do you feel, on a general premise, we're here to add?
Well, I think I'm going to use Jesus as an example for a second. We can use you as an example, me, Jesus, but you really don't transform anyone by telling them. You transform by being something. So by working on yourself and by being the best being you can be, other people are drawn to you. So when you tell your story, and I won't even call it a story, it's an experience you had. It was real. When you're telling that, you're transforming people just by being your authentic self. So by you walking around and being a higher state of consciousness, and you're always kind. Every single interaction I've had with you has been a kind one, and I have left the interaction feeling more loved, more received, all of that. And I think you do that for everybody. And
Likewise.
yeah, that is what I think our purpose is. Not so much, and it can be, you can go around helping people, and there's definitely room for that everywhere. I think our biggest job in this existence is to tap into the best version that we can be, and to overcome limitations, and try to understand that suffering is suffering because of our lack of understanding of where it's coming from and why it's there. And sometimes we can't really get around it. I feel like everybody has something to suffer about, in this world. However, that's part of your work of what you do. You help people become enlightened with the tools and the wisdom that you have of Jacob's Ladder, not only on your show, but apparently in your everyday life. You're helping people, and you're helping them because you have experienced things, or you have tools, or you have learned things that you could apply and give to them. That's a very generous way to live your life, by developing and collecting tools that have worked for you and that you know can work for other people. That's why writing books, or coming on a podcast, and you're just being your authentic self. You don't know who's watching and who you're helping.
Yeah. Well, it's funny that you mentioned the word tools, because I look much like you, and it seemed like you connect. Well, I think in your dream you connected to your grandfather, but in my life that was like a father to me. And even in pictures, I look exactly like him, but he ran an actual tool business, and that was his thing. And so I guess for myself, it was using that, but in a different way, to give people their own tools and to figure out what they had inside of them. But I wanted to bring back where we first started, because when sitting back and listening to you, I'm fascinated, because just a lot of what I saw in my NDE with the golden beings, and just the understanding of what you had with Jesus, and there's a lot of parallels that I had. But even the cave itself is fascinating. Plato, who oftentimes is referred to as one of the Greek philosophers that referred to near-death experience. And you could ask the godfather of near-death experience, the man who coined the term itself, Dr. Imamudi. He constantly talks about Greek philosophers and Plato. But one of Plato's talks, had to do with the allegory of the cave, which could be an allegory of the NDE, where there's a set of, you're in like this kind of, you're shackled, and there's images broadcast in front of you, and you break from those shackles, and then you go, and you're free in this kind of unencumbered, free state. But for you, the cave seemed to be very profound, but it had to do with abundance. Could you maybe kind of elaborate on that cave? Because to me, it seems like it could be something that could speak to a lot of people, and understanding what abundance means, what our gifts are, and why some people are able to hone into those and why some people just don't recognize them or don't accept them, because it seemed like you had the ability to accept that you were abundant, you were connected to it, and you deserved it. So could you shed a little bit on that?
Sure. I think that all of us, including me, have asked ourselves in one form or another. They might not use the word worthy, but because we are on a planet that is spinning through space, that is in a galaxy, that is in a universe with billions, I think sometimes we feel like we are small. And on top of it, life circumstances, when you were born, where you were born, can also make you feel that way. So I think we do have that question. Who are we? How worthy are we? And that. Anyways, keeping that in the back of your mind, that we always have that question. When I was presented with the cave, even I was overwhelmed at the gifts and the potential within this cave. So when I walked in, one of the things I was thinking is, what have I done that I'm worthy for all of this? So I think with that in mind, I think we have to understand our true essence. And our true essence is that we always have access to that cave, which can be represented by our unconsciousness or subconscious, as well as our body. So we have access to it. It's just, how do you feel about yourself, really? And most people won't authentically tell you what they really think. And you have to filter through a lot of your experiences. That's why forgiveness is important for yourself. Understanding as you move through life, if you have all of these beliefs about yourself, they actually create a barrier between you and the cave. So the more your spirit is free, truthful, honest, at the very least with yourself, the more access you have to it. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't just be gifted no matter what, that it can't just be bestowed on you, because there are mysteries beyond our understandings of how things work. But I do believe that the more that you can open up the channel between you and your authentic self and your true nature, and you can receive. So it also depends on how you see your God. You see your God as a right and wrong God, and you've done several wrongs that only you know. Well, you're never going to get to that cave unless these wrongs dissolve, and that you can have a clear passage to all abundance. So many people, I mean, I'm really going someplace here with this. It's not popular. I know that. Okay. I know it's not popular, but the relationship that you have with your inner self and your connection to your God and your spirit is a direct relationship between how much abundance you believe that you deserve to receive. So as you move along in your life, let's talk about everyday life. If you have a job and you make what's an average job that you make?
It's probably six figures to survive these days, but maybe $70,000. Yeah.
If you were earning $1 billion every year, you would feel like, what did I do? Do I need to step it up? Like, how would you feel if suddenly someone said, okay, we're going to pay you $1 billion for your channel every year?
Right. Not too bad.
Not too bad, but most people, maybe because you're different, you had an NDE, you've seen things and you've experienced things, but most people would wonder, well, why? Like, what do I have to do? Like, who do I have to be? That kind of thing. So when you receive, okay, this will help too. Many lottery winners, many of them, like, I don't know what the percentage is, they lose the money within a year or two. Because even though that abundance has flowed to them, if you aren't able to vibrationally match that energy of receiving, it just goes on by. It just travels right through you. And in order to have abundance and sustainable abundance, you have to be vibrating and receptive, like almost like a clear vessel, like a vessel of absolute relinquishing your faith to your spirit and God, and know that you are doing your very best, and you will feel like, I can receive it all without any limitations, like and also judgment. That's another huge one. If a person has a lot of judgment, what that is really is opinions, okay? They're opinions. And these opinions are strong opinions, and they block frequencies.
Mhm.
Opinions and belief systems can actually, unless you can allow other people around you to have the same freedom, which is called free will, and you have constructs for them, those limitations that you're putting on them are being right back onto you. And I suppose some people could say karma. So no limits, no judgments, love, authenticity, open channel, clarity, kindness. And what I mean by that is kindness isn't all just like, okay, I'm going to help you. And here, no, it's just like, hey, Jacob, whatever you believe and think and see and feel, I honor you because I know you're a human being like me and I appreciate you. Now, there are some people maybe that you might not feel that way about, but that's okay. At least give them the respect to go and move in their own dimension. Don't hang out there. Move away.
No, it seems like there has to be congruency for this to work. And I think that's a big part of life, is the congruency with how you see yourself and who you really are. And I think there's a lot of myths or just kind of beliefs that are incongruent with reality. And I think what is a barrier for people to really see themselves differently is they're putting the goggles in how they see this world, or rather the lens that this world has put on them from a very early age, and all these cultural myths, and how those get in the way of our ability to see ourselves differently. And it's for instance, in our world, in order to be something, you need to do something. In order to have something, you need to work, you need to toil. And, certainly having a near-death experience at 3 years old, and what the heck did I do at 3 years old to earn that? I mean, I don't know, I had some baby food, or I was maybe didn't cry as much. I don't know exactly what I did, but it reminded me that heaven is not something you earned. It's something that you're forever connected to. And it's not a monopolization of a select few. It is indeed the kingdom of all. So it's beautiful when you have affirmative themes and continual messages from Jesus, as well as within the cave that you saw, that just consistent reminders of just how evidential this message is, just coming in different ways.
How many limiting beliefs did you have at 3 years old?
Not many,
No.
I not many, but it's just amazing how you grow in life, you get that test grade. Oh my God, I'm just stupid. I feel like that. You get that great grade, you feel great. It's no wonder why my business is booming, because there's a very unstable sense of self-worth. And it seems like from what you're saying is self-esteem, self-worth is key. Like we're taught too much of that is a bad thing. Too little of that is a bad thing. So when you can, but I think it's okay to love yourself, to know that you are worthy, to know, to be congruent with who you really are. Anything beyond that is not helpful,
No,
and it's a myth. So
yeah, and that's where the word authentic comes in. Is like going in your stride of authenticity. And I agree with you. I don't feel people have to earn it. I just feel that they have to make space for it.
Yeah. The first thing is to feel that you're ready for that you are able for that is who you are. But beliefs play a big role in our world orientation, as you said.
Yeah. There's something I wanted to talk about with you that you jogged, believe it or not. It came to me as we're talking, is synchronicities. And I think synchronicities are really cool, because I think synchronicities allow people, everyday people who have not had a near-death experience the little warp in time, space, or you've had a deja vu or a synchronicity and you're like, oh, I know that happened. And there's no way that this could have happened because of this. And you're like, wow, like something's going on here. Or you find feathers, or some people find dimes and all that stuff. They're like, how is it even possible? And those are things that are opening up. There's a split in the seam of consciousness that they can go through that. And I think that that's accessible to everyone today. And, everybody has their own experience. Even someone who's judging, for example, you can't even judge that, because that is their desire. That's an expression that's created from a being. And, you know, if you were in a spot that you weren't especially happy about, you don't want somebody coming and saying to you, hey, you know, stop. Stop. You have to give them the free will. And that's where I think God gives us that free will to go through and run through what we need to become pure consciousness and join with him and her, however you want to envision God.
The key is just to be aware and to not judge. You just say, who am I to have this? Who am I to see that? But, you know, it could happen at any given time. And I think not to try to force it, but just to allow, you know, these things to come to you. And you'll see all these connected dots coming together that are miraculous. I mean, it's amazing when you're tuned in what you could just, I mean, for me, half the time I go into my car just so that I could see signs, because I don't try for them, but it's like 4 or 5 in a row that happen, which we call like super sync. There's levels of synchronicities, but when it's like 4 or 5 things happening at the same time, it's like you can't deny it, but you just have to look out for it, not try to force it.
Yes.
And it's there. We certainly have had, you know, many, you know, I view the human story in a way, like I once had one teacher describe it this way, where walking on this path, you have like a backpack on, and you take on these jewels or these pebbles throughout life, whether that be people, experiences. And it seems like for you, you've gathered so much of these factors. You want to call it abundance, but you want to call it transformative experience, but you've gathered so much of this. What do you feel are some of the visions that you've had with so many of these transformations that you had moving forward? I know obviously you had the YouTube channel, you do a lot of work, but what's like your primary focus that you've been able to really put a lot of these awakenings, what I like to call spirituality with practicality? Like, how do you feel right now is your vision? What's around the corner for you, in other words, with all these transformations that you've had?
First of all of those things that I learned, I think those are gold. And they're in my soul now. And they're in my spirit, and they're never going to leave me from one dimension to another. So that kingdom within, that golden cave, when you leave this dimension, you might not need all the things that you've gathered, like financial abundance, so to speak. But when you have gold abundance, you take it wherever you go. So my goal, I think, and this has been an interesting year, because for the first time, I'm really opening up my spirit to say, I receive, I want to receive. And so I'm in that mode at the moment. And wherever I move and whatever I do, and each person I encounter, and each time I go on my channel, I'm moving through that. I don't have an agenda at the moment. My agenda is to meet wherever I am at with the most creativity, with the most love, with the most authenticity that I possibly can. And I know that whatever is my innermost desire will connect with the opportunity that comes. So I create courses. I help entrepreneurs that are struggling with their own. I work with archetypes and helping them find their brand and their voice. I work with that group, and then I work with spiritual people on my channel who want to entertain higher consciousness, that they're gone beyond the question of, is there a God, to how can I interact and play an active role as a creator in my life? How can I create my life around me to be that which I really desire? So yeah, twofold. And then of course I have my family, which I absolutely adore. And I love each member. We've got a new member of our family, and I really love putting the love on. And that's one thing my dad really did when I was little. My father would just really be very affectionate, very kind words. He said a lot of very positive things. And I realized that creates a framework and a reinforcement in spirits. And I think that is probably the most important job that we have. And that's what you're doing and that's what I enjoy doing with my family, is letting them know, You absolutely love them no matter what. You're absolutely there for them as much as you can be no matter what. That just your presence, your authentic presence, is the most important thing. And that as you move forward in your day, if you give your best and also being honest with yourself, not denying your intuition, like it's important not to suppress who you are to serve, but serve authentically so that it flows easily and it's not a chore.
Love it. Love it. And it seems like for you, I think our purpose has a lot to do with our pain or our past. And I think the
Mhm.
people that we're being drawn to serve in our life are people that maybe we see a part of ourselves in some way. And I don't know if you find that, but certainly in my practice, I almost view life as a training school to be a spirit guide, because you think of the guides, they're attracted to us for whatever reason, but there's something in us that maybe they also might have experienced, whether they were living here or over there. And so there's a point of attraction that we just have with the people in professional and personal relationships. My last question for you has to do with abundance. My greatest teacher, one of my greatest teachers in this lifetime, would say, you don't, Dr. Wayne Dyer would say, you don't attract what you want, you attract who you are. And so I think in a way, what we want, we would want more of wanting things. It would never be fulfilled. Once we want that, you get that pony, you want a whole circus. So it's like one thing after
Mhm.
another instead of attracting who you really are.
Mhm.
But I'm wondering, for you, do you have anything to say to my viewers who maybe are finding that they're just continuing to attract that wrong partner, that difficult job, or that same partner all over again, or financial lack of sustenance? Like, how could people become better, more magnetic forces for the life that they really desire deep within? How would you? I know that's a long-winded answer. I'm sure that would require probably a whole focus in of itself of a course for you. But what would you say to that?
The very shortest answer I can give is self love. Learn to love yourself. That's the very shortest answer. A
Mm-hmm.
medium answer would be is to understand that want is coming from a stance of void, filling the void. And the way that reality and everything works is that like attracts like. So if there's a lot of want, you're going to have that kind of behavior. So if there's underlying wounds also, so whoever you are, like you're vibrating at that level. I just want to bring to your viewers' attention, if you haven't heard of this experiment where there's 3 glasses of water, one glass of water was spoken to very nicely, the other one very poorly, and the other one medium. And of course, you know which one, when they tested the crystals and looked at the water, which one was more positive. So I say do that to yourself. I mean, we are, after all, approximately 60% water. That's my fitness
Mm.
background.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And so, how we speak to ourselves first defines who we are. And then, as our energy moves around us, we're not kidding anyone. People feel you on a more intuitive level. And so, they will push any boundaries or they will interact with you the way that you internally interact with yourself sooner or later. Because believe it or not, we're creating that energetic relationship. So once we understand who we are and we can be authentic and stand in our authenticity, we will either tolerate or not tolerate that type of behavior. But you're asking me about relationships, therefore that's what I'm talking about. So in a relationship, I think I'm a good person to talk about relationships. I've been in a relationship for over 30 years. So, and it's sustaining and maintaining, because I understand that if I want something, if there's that void there, I need to understand how to develop and reinforce my own spirit, my own being first. And then when that person looks at me, they see that and they give me more of that. But when you have a void or a need or a pain, you would think the logical thing is somebody comes and serves that
Mm.
and tries to fill that. but it's a pit that can't be filled by somebody else. And usually what will happen is that person will be exhausted because they've tried filling it and it never fills, so they get exasperated, and
Right.
that's when arguments start or incongruencies start. So the best thing to do is to really give yourself the luxury of loving yourself and putting yourself on your schedule, on your radar. And I'm not talking about going to the spa, although that doesn't hurt. You talked about going to the gym, going for your run. What you're doing is you're filling your cup. You're bringing yourself as you're on your strongest game. You are being the center player in the soccer game. You showed up, you went on the field, you're playing your strongest game, and you're moving forward. And what happens to the center? What happens to that?
I always say the better I am, the better the world around me is. And when you come from a place of service, for me, when I go to the gym, it's in order to give, I need to receive. And you can't just give from empty.
Right. So let's talk about a little bit of deeper things, like some people who are experiencing very serious pain from somebody who's related to them, like a mother or father relationship, that you really can't escape that. And you can't sort of win your way out of that. You really have to understand, well, why doesn't this person love me or this? It's still the same mechanism, but understanding that people around you, even though we rely on them, just like when my father passed away, he said, hey, you're on your own now. You got to do this. And sometimes, if you look at a mama bear and her cubs, she teaches them everything. She's with them every day. She teaches them where the honey is, where to go, where not to go. And at some point when they get to be around 3, she shoos them away.
Right.
And that is the pain that we experience, the rejection that we feel from the people that we expect for them to be a certain way for us, and they're not. And Deepak Chopra said this: it's expectation that births disappointment. So it's your expectation from people. And what if we expected that much from ourselves, to love ourselves that much? And then people say, well, I don't know how to love myself that much. Nobody ever taught me. That's your job.
That's the crux. I love it. Ram Dass once says, you could do nothing for me but work on yourself, and I could do nothing for me but work on myself. And it's so true, because others and how they conduct themselves and who they are has nothing to do with you. It's their stuff, and it's out of our control. And I say we want to think globally by acting locally, and our macrocosm is our microcosm. So as I say, yesterday I was clever, so I wanted to change the world. Today I was wise, so I decided to change myself. So Silvia, very fitting to have you on MLK Day, the day of I Had a Dream. And hopefully my viewers will remind themselves that, yes, we do have dreams, but we are also beyond our wildest dreams. We are the dream. And we don't just have them, we are them, and we're beyond it. And Silvia, if my viewers were to want to find you, your channel, what would be the best way to get in touch or to learn more about your offerings? You're on YouTube, is that correct? But tell us a little bit more.
Sure. So right here is my name. So you would do the @ symbol at my name, Silvia Isachsen. It's a little challenging to spell.
Right. It's not with a Y. Yeah.
Not with a Y. And then Isachsen is spelled different. So you just put an @ symbol in front after youtube.com and they can find me. But there's one last thing I want to say to every viewer. I want to leave you with compassion and love and understanding. And I know that some of the things that I said today are going to meet you, and some might feel a bit abrasive, but all meant in love. And I welcome if you want to email me or comment or come to my channel or not. Thank you so much for listening today. And thank you, Jacob, for creating this space and this platform and for inviting me.
Oh, an honor to have you. You're welcome back anytime. And I really couldn't thank you enough for your incredible wisdom, generous time, and as well as viewers for tuning in to a wonderful high vibratory conversation that I know will impact many. So please tune in, please watch. Thank you all. Silvia, let's reconnect soon, okay?
For sure. Bye, Jacob.
Right. That was a wonderful conversation that we had with Silvia Isachsen. I know we hit on a lot of points, from NDEs, near-death experiences, to dreams, to manifestation, to higher consciousness and the whole gamut. So she's just a wellspring of wisdom, of information, and she's very connected in her life. And my hope is you could learn from her example and start to see the world in a different way. So viewers, for tuning in, thank you for coming on. Make sure to continue to subscribe as well as share our conversations and your comments on this conversation to help grow the channel. This is Jacob Cooper signing off, and we'll see you here next week on the Wisdom Jacob's Ladder. Thank you.